Hello there everybody, Sean Sheehan back here with another episode of the Sheehan Show, and today it's a little bit different. It's the first one where I talk about a topic. I'm going to take a topic every so often. You've seen my interviews, you've seen the betting show, you've seen my previews and everything like that, but I want to talk about certain parts of the sport, certain aspects of the sport as well. I'm sure we'll be talking about judging. I've talked a lot about that in my career at MMA to date, and once something big happens, once I get the opportunity to talk about that, I will be talking about that and lots of other things as well. But today I'm here to talk about the PFL. I'm actually only a few minutes out here from the PFL finale card ending, and I'm not going to review that card itself. I might give you the results and stuff here in a second, but I want to talk about the PFL in general, their production, the format and everything like that. And I think it's very much what the PFL have at the moment is trying to get an American sporting product. And obviously me as someone who's Irish and not American, I can maybe look at it from the outside perspective and maybe give a little bit of a different perspective than what maybe a lot of people listening to this over in America might have, and make another few points about it as well. The first point I want to make about it, right? So I have a few positives and I have a few negatives, but I have to hit on a positive point first, because watching that tonight, it just was so joyous to see people happy with the amount of money they were making. We watch the UFC every week and other organizations, and they're like, the 50 G's Dana has almost become a meme now at the moment. With people like looking for extra money and looking for bonuses, just and almost begging for and crying when they get it. It's a huge thing in the moment, the way fighters are paid and not paid enough. And now I'm sure that's still an issue in the PFL for the people who don't win. But for the people who do win, it's purely life-changing. It's huge, $1 million. And I know there's tax and everything, and they're not probably taking home $1 million or anywhere close to it. But it's an awful lot of money for an MMA fighter to earn in 2021 still. And now it probably shouldn't be. We're in a world where players in different sports and Formula 1 drivers and soccer players and NFL players are getting gargantuan amounts of money, and MMA fighters aren't there yet. Now some of them, Conor McGregor's made a lot of money, John Jones, and even they probably haven't made enough money. But from the mid-level down, from the near the top level down, if you're not one of the top draws, you're not making a life-changing amount of money in a single night or over a couple of years, like say the likes of Ray Cooper did tonight. And I feel like that, and I know people will probably listen to this and say, well, they're not all making it. What about Magomed Karimov tonight? Okay, he won one before, but what about like Ante Deja tonight, who didn't win it? And that's absolutely true. But they have the opportunity to do it. Like I made the comparison, or I made the kind of the point over on Twitter that someone like a Dominic Reyes, who obviously has gotten a UFC title shot, and how much did he get for that? Maybe 300 grand, maybe 500 grand. How much did he get for his fights after that? Maybe he got 100 grand to headline a card, maybe 200 grand. But like, if he's not, and I think he's lost a couple of fights now in a row, he's probably back to earning, his 50 grand or his 80 grand maybe, or whatever, maybe 50 and 50, And for someone like that, it would be an opportunity where you could win your fights, get paid for your fights, probably not a huge amount, probably not a big amount, and then win the million at the end of it. And that's at a high level of what would be going to this. Look at Shoeface, Antonio Carlos Jr., a guy who was, a good UFC fighter, but never one that was he? Maybe he was top 15, was he? Maybe borderline, but was winning a few fights, losing a few fights in the UFC, and then goes to the PFL and gets this championship and gets a life-changing amount of money, $1 million. And I just think, I know it's a weird thing to say, because it probably shouldn't be a positive, because everyone should be able to get this amount of money. Or not everyone, but you know what I mean. Like, more people than get $1 million should be getting it. The likes of a Dominic Reyes, who maybe headlined a few cards, should be getting $1 million every time, or $2 million. We know we've talked about it, and it's not for, lots of people have talked about it. I saw a show went up the other day on Sherdog talking about paying John Nash over in Bloody Elbow has done good stuff, and loads of people have done great stuff talking about it. And I know it should be, but it's not, right? We're not at the point in MMA where fighters are getting paid the amount of money they should. So to see someone getting that amount of money, it's just joyous. It's brilliant. It's one of the most positive things you see in MMA. All the fighters tonight, they're crying when they won the money. And it's not crying looking for money, it's not crying, you got 50 grand, which is great, I would turn my nose up at 50 grand now, but to get $1 million, that is different and that is huge, and it's just brilliant. I'm glad they're doing it. And look, where's the money coming from, and how are they going to keep going sustainable? I know, and where's the money coming from? There's lots of investors and lots of different things. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but is it sustainable? Like, there's very few people. Is there anyone at those cards? Or very few anyway since the pandemic came in. I think they're finished now with ESPN, so they're looking for a new home. All the wrestling and the MMA organizations these days are earning lots of their money. True, as I forgot to turn on my light. Hold on, I'll turn it on here now. You'll see me better. Through TV deals. So without a TV deal, it's going to be an issue. So they'll need a TV deal to come into next year to keep this and make it sustainable. So that to me is okay as we look forward, and we look forward more again in a second with another topic. But for me, I have to start off with the positive point. The next point I want to make is both a positive and a negative point. And if you're looking at the PFL as a whole, I think meritocracy is one of those kind of the words that is always used for it, because if look at Ray Cooper, if he was someone like that was in the UFC, and I know Ariel was giving out to me saying, you want him to go to the UFC and get 80 grand when he just got $1 million. I absolutely don't want that. But you look at someone like Ray Cooper, right, and say someone like a Leon Edwards in the UFC, who has won his way to where he should get an opportunity but isn't getting it. In PFL, he gets it. If he wins his way there, he gets it. He won his way to the final. He won the final. He gets the $1 million. That's it. You don't have to politic. You don't have to beat number 7 and not number 8. You don't have to beat Masvidal to get there. You don't have to beat Diaz. It's not that. It's not on the whim of Dana White and Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard how they're feeling on a Tuesday morning. It's on facts based on their point system and all of this, and you get to the final and you get there, you win your way there. It's merit-based, which is great, right? That's fantastic. The bad part about that for me is that you can't pick and choose. The bad part is tonight we were watching that card, and you know what? There was no Brendan Loughnane on it. There was no Anthony Pettis on it. There was no Fabricio Verdum on it. There was no Clay Collard on it. There was no Rory McDonald on it. 5 of their biggest names, Tom Lawler as well. People who would draw fans. Not all of them. Now, I'm sure Anthony Pettis would, and I'm sure Rory McDonald would. Imagine if they were both in the finals tonight. They would have done way more numbers. And as I was talking about earlier on, the ratings go up. The money you get for those ratings will go up. That is a big issue with it. That is the negative part of meritocracy, that you can pick and choose your stars to be there. Now, for me, and I've spoken about this before on over on the Severe MMA podcast and other places as well, I think they need to do a better job of maybe adjusting that, maybe doing, like Brendan Loughnane made weight today to be a backup for the main event. Maybe they need to have 2 backups and get Brendan Loughnane a fight, And I think Clay Collard as well, I might be mistaken, but I think Clay Collard made weight for the lightweight fight. Maybe they should have got Pettis and done that rematch, or whoever it might be, and got Rory McDonald. And no, it's not always easy, and some people got knocked out, and some people don't want to fight, and some people want to wait for the next season, but some people do want to fight as well and want to earn more money. And I think that could benefit everyone. So I think that is a big issue with it. It's just if the UFC have a card where they want to make it a huge card and they're struggling for name value, they can pick and choose who they want to put on it. Let's be honest here. They can. If they don't like, the number 1 contender who deserves it, if they're too boring in accordance with the UFC or whatever it might be, or with how the UFC think, they will bypass him and they'll put someone else in. They will put Zhang Weili back into the title shot, but maybe people think she should have to have a few fights before she gets it, or maybe Carla Esparza deserves it first. If Carla Esparza was in PFL, Carla Esparza would be fighting for the title, So that's the difference. Now you can look at that negatively or positively. Which would you rather see, Zhang Weili against Rosnam Yunus, or Rosnam Yunus against Carla Esparza? I'd probably rather see Zhang Weili against Rosnam Yunus, to be honest. Now, I would still argue that Esparza deserves it. and I would go against my own feelings and my own, my own what I want myself as a fan. But that is not a thing that is necessary in the UFC, and it is a thing that happens in the PFL. So, that is a big part of it as well. And another thing as well is that I think the PFL have ran their tournaments very well this year. But the problem is that all the names I named, the 5 names I named out there, none of them won. And if you look at what makes a tournament great, you only have to look as far as Bellator and AJ McKee winning that. Getting to the final through middle of the pandemic. It felt like it went on for about 3 years. But he got to the final, and do you know who he beat? He beat Patricio Pitbull. He beat the champion. He beat the guy who was champion all the way through it. That's what made it special. And the PFL, look, they didn't really have that. They didn't have the next person coming through. Let's say they had someone who's coming through and who's going to beat Kayla Harrison, and she came the whole way through, and then she beat Kayla Harrison in the end. That'd make it special. Or someone who was coming through all the way and beat, Ray Cooper. Let's say if it was Rory McDonald, he came through and he beat Ray Cooper, and now you have Rory McDonald, who is a long time, top 15 pound for pound fighter in the world, and he comes through and he beats your guy, and now he is your guy. He's the PFL champion, and he is the guy you're going to push. They didn't really have that this year. And that is a big problem. They didn't have that special fighter who came in and, did those sort of things for them. And I think that is a problem with the tournament style, and the problem with the meritocracy as well. Now, another couple of points. The production. So actually, before I get to production, one point I must hit on, and I won't hit on it too much, but it's the judging, right? During the last few cards, I think, Bellator had a lot of the cards. I'm going to a Bellator card next week, right? And the people who are fighting on the Bellator card, and I think a lot of the officials and stuff, have to get there a couple of days early, stay there, maybe quarantine, and I think quarantine's even more in America, or was a couple of months ago as well anyway, and they're out of commission. So we're talking about judges, referees and everything like that. And there's lots of UFC cards, lots of Bellator cards, and there's a big issue with PFL when they stay in the same place all the time, and they're on some of the officials are not available. They have to go with the locals. Like tonight, we saw none of the officials that we might know, the Sal Diamados or the Chris Lees or the Ben Cartledges or whoever it might be. None of them were on the card tonight. Now, it was okay. The one, Clarissa Shields, was a little bit odd, the split decision, but the right person won it. There wasn't really any bad decisions now. But you need the best judges in the world on these cards to get all the right decisions. And throughout the whole PFL season, they haven't had that. They've had some of them. I think Brian Miner has done a few cards, and I think some of the previous names I mentioned there have done some of the cards as well. But I think the PFL and the commission have to get together, and the commission will pick their own people. But the PFL, like the UFC do, can suggest certain people or pay to bring in or fly in the big judges, the best judges, so you have the best results. And I think especially on championship night, when you have 6 title fights, you need that. Right, so I leave that at that for a second. Now, the next point I want to make is about those 6 title fights. I think it's too much. I think it's too much for one night. We'll get to the basic and stuff in a second. But I tweeted, and funny, we're on Sherdog.com here. Greg Savage replied to me with a kind of a smiley winky face. So maybe I hit on something. But I think the PFL need a championship weekend. I think they need to do Friday, Saturday, or maybe Thursday, Friday, whatever you want to do. They like to do the midweek cards as well, and I'd have no problem with that. And you would also sort the problem I talked about earlier. So let's say tonight you had Harrison, Cooper, and Capiloza. Put them on the Saturday night, and then the Friday night you have the Manfeo, Carlos Jr. and Kabulov fights. Or, if let's say Rory McDonald was in there in a final or something, you put him as a headliner and Harrison the other headline, whatever it might be. You do the cards the right way. So you have 3 title fights on one card, 3 title fights on the next card, and then you can put Brendan Loughnane on the undercard. You can put Rory McDonald on the undercard. You can put Anthony Pettis on the undercard. You can put Clay Collard on the undercard. Tom Lawler, whoever you want. All of your fighters, all of your best fighters, you can have all of them fighting on one weekend in 2 cards over 2 nights. Imagine It'd be a festival of PFL. It'd be absolutely brilliant. And you wouldn't have these long cards that are never ending. And you could mix your stars with your meritocracy and with your title fights and with your best fights. I really think that's the thing they need to adjust, they need to change, and they need to do for next year. 6 title fights. It could be 30 rounds. And then there's 4 other fights as well. That's another, 4 3s, 12. What is that, 42 rounds? That is too much. That is too much for one night of MMA. The big issue as well with this was their pacing. It was absolutely insane. I started to hear at 9:30 over in Ireland. What time is it now? 5:20 in the morning. I'm sitting here recording this. It ended about, how long have I been recording this? 15 minutes. It ended about 5 o'clock in the morning. And now that isn't late for a normal card, but when you start at 9:30 at night, the card shouldn't be going that long. You shouldn't have rappers out there and waiting 45 minutes for them to come on. It's absolutely crazy. The pacing was absolutely insane. Just absolutely insane. Way, way, way too slow. You need to, like, nobody likes this, right? I can understand if your main card is starting, say, at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and the last fight finishes at 25 to, look, we all understand that you have to kill 25 minutes, you have to do something, you have to talk about the fights, you have to play a promo, no problem at all, right? But I would rather have 30 minutes, 35 minutes at the end and give me fight. And I know I can go away then and there's going to be no fight until 10 p.m. Tell me there's going to be no fight until 10 p.m. I can go and do something and I pop back in. You know, that's what all promotions need to do. That's what UFC have done that better, I think, recently. Cage Warriors do it phenomenally well. Bellator used to be bad for it. I think they're getting a little bit better. But I think that's something PFL badly needs. They're just too much. And especially on a night like tonight with all of that, it's just too much. Right. Couple of the negative things that I don't like. First of all, first of all, the couple of production things. Ghost cam, I don't mind it. You know, the one that kind of goes through the cage. I think lots of cameras are kind of ghost cams. I know my brother Patrick does the photography here over a lot of the MMA events in Ireland. He's always talking about these cameras going through the cage. People who know how to do that know how to do it, right? There's certain people who are fantastic at that stuff and they know how to do it. So I don't mind it. I don't mind them making a thing out of that. I think they do a good job of trying to make things special with, you know, what do they call it? The smart cage and all of that. Look, a lot of BS, but fine. They're trying to make it special. They're trying to make it different. No problem with that whatsoever. What I absolutely detest with all of my being is the referee cam. Now, I'll say some people love the referee cam. Some people hate it. I have no problem with them having the referee cam if you show me the referee cam afterwards, right? So, the perfect example tonight, there was the big knockout in the Ray Cooper fight. And there was actually one before. It was the Jordan Young Akhmedov fight, right? So they cut it at the right time on the referee cam, and on the camera they actually had, which is another issue, which they had on the fight as the knockout happened. They completely missed it. Like the cameraman, it was like this. It was like, you know, it was like 90% canvas and 10% fighter, and you could barely see the punchline. You could barely see the referee stopping it, and that's not the ref cam. That is the camera work itself and the production team in the back. I think they have, and that's a very tough job. So I'm not criticizing them too much, but I think they need to get better at that. I think they maybe need to bring in someone to consult on that, and they really need to improve on the ref cam. At that point, right, you make that error. Then you go to the ref cam afterwards for the replay and see if you have a better angle. If you do, play it, right? If you get a great angle of the finish, it's on the TV live, no problem, play it. Then you say, oh look, there's a good angle on the ref cam as well. Go to it, play the ref cam, let us see that replay. What we don't need is the referee, the problem with the referee cam is the referee gets close, he's looking at one area, he's right down near the fighters, and there's a peripheral vision there in that camera where you could see this side of the fighters. You can't see the hands or the legs on the left hand side. You could see the top of the fighters. You might miss tap. You might miss the referee going in to stop it, more importantly, and just it's the referee falling on top of him. All you see is like fucking sharks in the referee's face. It is so bad. It is not something you need to use live. It wasn't really an issue in the finals, but throughout the PFL, I've watched all the cards now. Throughout this season of the PFL, many finishes have been ruined because of this referee cam. It is terrible. It should stay, but only as a replay. That's what I think of it. Another couple of things. This FRP, FPR, whatever it is. Sean O'Connell loves it. They need to get rid of that. Because, and look, we'll talk again further about this in the future, maybe, and talk about judging. There is a judging criteria there, which we score mixed martial arts with. The PFL have made up their own judging criteria. Someone has made up their own judging criteria, which the PFL use as an indication of who wins the rounds. That criteria has nothing to do with the actual criteria that the judge is using. It is pointless. It is stupid. It's not just being different. It is not just being different. It's being incorrect. It's literally being incorrect. They need to get rid of it. It is so bad, right? Then verdict MMA. They had the fan voting. Look, I don't mind the fan vote so much if they keep it to a minimum. I'm not a fan of verdict MMA. The crowds will get the right thing is just incorrect. I would rather have one judge who knows the criteria perfectly than 10,000 who've never read it. I think that one person could make a lot better of a call on who won a round than the 10,000 people who haven't a clue how fights are scored. So I don't like that at all. I really don't like it. So yeah, that is my negative sides of it. The one thing though I want, and I'll end it on this, I think the best part about the PFL is something which MMA is lacking more now than it ever has lacked, right? And that is jeopardy in fights. Before, in MMA, when we had, the 12 cards a year or whatever it might have been in the UFC, if you went in and you won your 2 or 3 fights, you knew you were there or thereabouts. You were getting towards the title. Next year you might be fighting for a title or whatever. If you go into the UFC now and you win 2 or 3 fights, you're like, okay, right, I have my place in the UFC for another fight. And then maybe I win 2 or 3 more. Right, I might get ranked now. And then, if you get a 10-fight win streak, you might get a title shot. It's, in the PFL, there is jeopardy all the time. Even in the fights tonight, the undercard fights, there's jeopardy, the jeopardy of whether you get into next year's bracket to get to the tournament to win the million. Throughout the whole tournament, it is, can I win this fight to get to the next round, to get to the playoffs, to get to the final, to get to the million. That is brilliant. Like, even last week, we watched Marvin Vettori versus Paulo Costa. 2 guys who were ranked in the top 5 in the UFC's middleweight division. I know it took place at light heavyweight, but go with me for a minute. What was the jeopardy really in that fight? Like, was either guy going to fight Israel Adesanya next for the title? Was either fighter going to have like $1 million worth of a payday if they won that? Or even get towards it? Not really, not really. And a lot of the fights, the undercard fights, and that may be a bad example because that's a higher up fight, because maybe in 2 or 3 fights they could get towards the title. But what about the fights on the undercard? What about the likes of the Charles Roses and the other people fighting on the undercard who are good fighters? And I'm not saying anything bad about. No, look, my hair's gone. I'm not saying anything bad about these fighters, but that lack of jeopardy in lots of not just the undercard fights, but the higher level, the higher ranked fights, or the higher, the higher on the card that the fights are, they even don't have that much jeopardy. There's lots of fights these days that are even main events, but co-main events, main card fights that won't lead to a contender or a championship ramification for years. In the PFL, and you could say the same for Bellator and other places, in the PFL, they do. Almost all of them have ramifications in terms of what's next. They all have jeopardy. They all will get you towards that title. And that's a thing that is helped by obviously the yearly titles. If the same person had the title all the time and they were only defending it 2 or 3 times a year, that might be a little bit different. But the fact that they, Kayla Harrison won the championship now, but she's basically no longer the champion because there's going to be another tournament next year. Well, maybe if she's still there. And I suppose that's a point as well. And I said I did this, but what does Kayla Harrison do? What does Ray Cooper do? I think Ariel reported that Ray Cooper is out of the out of contract. Kayla Harrison is out of contract, I think, as well. And I'd love to see Ray Cooper versus Gilbert Burns, but as we heard on Twitter, what you want him to go and fight for 80 when he could go and win another million, and that is an issue. Maybe like if the likes of maybe not Ray Cooper, maybe Ray Cooper going to Bellator would be a move, or maybe just staying in the PFL. But the likes of Kayla Harrison, like I doubt the UFC are going to pay her $1 million straight away to come over. But what about if they did something for her where you're like, right, I'm going to give you 1.5 million over 4 fights. You have to win this fight to get to the championship fight, or you get pay-per-view points, and you'll get 100 grand for your first fight, you'll get 200 and 200 for your second, and then you'll get your 500 grand and your pay-per-view points, or however it adds up. Maybe that's the way to do it, and make an agreement. Now, are the UFC going to pay that by what Dana White said during the week? Absolutely not. And the big question then is, what do you do? If you're Kayla Harrison, do you take that pay cut to prove you're the best in the world, or do you keep earning that milli every year easily in the PFL? I know what I'd do. I'd be earning that milli, and I think she's ready. I think it's time. I would like to see her fight Amanda Nunes now, or even maybe have one more fight, maybe go to the UFC, have a fight and do it then. So she can either back herself and do that, or she can stay in the PFL and take that milli. I think it's a little bit of a different thing for Ray Cooper, because he's not guaranteed it. Magomed Karimov will be back again next year, and he's already beaten him. They're 1-1 now, so maybe that'd be brilliant if they both got to the final again next year. But then you're going to have Rory McDonald, and you might have Pettis up at that weight class next year, and you have some tough fights there. So that's not easy by any means. So there's a big decision to be made there, but I think for guys like Cooper, and for guys like, Capiloza, who might go to the UFC and fight at heavyweight, why would you? You're not going to get $1 million in the next year out of the UFC. You might as well stay, try to get your $1 million and do it that way. I think the PFL, I hope it keeps going. Because of all the good parts. Now, there's some bad parts, but the good parts, making fighters rich, I love it. I absolutely love it. Right, everyone, that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this, and let me know what you think. I'll see you all next time. Good luck.